Will Rockstar continue to remaster games after the many disappointing releases they've had just in the last few years? We're all very familiar with the hilarious yet soul-crushing incident that was the initial release for the Definitive Edition trilogy, which was a fiasco to say the least, and can be best described by this one picture on screen. And more recently, we had the PS4 and Nintendo Switch port of Red Dead Redemption 1, after a small wait of only 13 years. A port that was met with mixed feelings, as some people were glad RDR1 got saved from being forever stuck on ancient hardware, while others bashed Rockstar for not giving it a proper remaster, and only adding a simple 60 FPS patch for it days after release. Even though Rockstar is a powerhouse when it comes to making amazing games, when it comes to remastering or even porting their games to newer hardware, we have a long history that has proved there's only 3 scenarios that can happen when it comes to that. Either 1, they take a gigantic amount of time to port the games to the PC, which was the case for GTA 5 back when it released, as it took 2 whole years before it came on it. 2, they never even bother making one, and games end up having to be emulated to be played on today's hardware. Or the 3rd scenario, when they actually port and even remaster the games, they end up being a worse product than the original, implementing game-breaking glitches and taking forever to patch them, all while charging a full price for a new coat of paint. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Rockstar as a game developer as much as anyone else, but I also hate the decisions they've made for the past few years, and I feel like calling them out on it is only fair. First, let's talk about the biggest disappointment Rockstar ever delivered to us, the defective editions. Now, there's not much more I can add to the discussion that other videos haven't said about this matter for the past 2 years. But what I can tell you is that these remasters have definitely set a bad precedent, and that any other upcoming remastering project they might have in store for us won't exactly be met with that much praise and excitement. Now, it's far too late for what I'm about to say, but perhaps the best roadmap for these definitive editions should have looked a whole lot different. You may or may not be a fan of the Resident Evil franchise, but for the past 5 years, Capcom has been on a journey of remaking their first games in the series. We first saw the RE2 remake back in 2019, and people all over the world who are fans of the franchise applauded Capcom for the quality of the remake because they took a PS1 game from back in 1998 and adapted it to modern standards in terms of graphics, obviously, better controls, and now a third-person camera instead of the one with fixed angles, something that not everyone loved, but you can't please everyone. And most importantly, they did improve the atmosphere a lot by having a more serious tone to the game, with dialogue feeling more realistic than it was back in the original.
I ain't got no clue, darling. But don't you worry, girlie. I'm keeping a close eye on things.
Because of the massive success of the RE2 remake, the following year in 2020, we saw the Resident Evil 3 remake, which, to be fair, removed quite a bit of content from the original and wasn't exactly met with the same praise and love, but it still did a solid job of adapting a really old game back from the late 90s to a modern audience. Most recently, we saw RE4R, that rebuilt the most beloved game in the entire franchise from the ground up, and having a much more serious tone than the original while still featuring some of the campiness the OG games had.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
But what do the Resident Evil remakes have to do with the GTA Definitive Editions? Well, nothing, but all of my previous rambling had the purpose of pointing out how Rockstar should have went about adapting these really beloved games from the early 2000s to a modern audience. Remakes. You might say I'm crazy for suggesting that, but what other better solution would there even be? Sure, it'd probably take a massive budget to remake 3 games at the same time, but it doesn't need to be that way. Back when Rockstar first teased us about the remasters, we received the news that upon GTA 3's 20th anniversary, we would get a trailer for something that was about to be released. And that ended up being the trailer for the DE games. I think the better way Rockstar should have approached this would have been to remake and release each of the games on their respective 20-year anniversaries. Instead of hiring a mobile game studio to work on 3 titles at the same time, and not even using Rockstar's in-house engine, mind you, and with a time frame that's laughable. I cannot blame Grove Street Games for the disaster all that much. They didn't have a lot to work with in the first place thanks to Rockstar's greed. If Rockstar had left this supposed remake project to 1, maybe 2 of their studios, had them use their own Rage engine, and perhaps borrow a lot of assets from the already released games at the time, such as GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2 even, that could have turned into something much better. Now, there's a bunch of arguments against this. Some people might say it's too much of a hassle for them to take these 3 games and turn them into something similar to GTA 5, while still maintaining the goofiness and freedom of the 3D era and not completely ruining them. But seriously, it's Rockstar we're talking about. If they wanted to, they could, and it wouldn't even be the biggest challenge they've ever faced. I'd argue the biggest challenge they faced in recent times was to make RDR2 run on a PS4/Xbox One without the consoles bursting into flames, as that game is a marvelous looking piece of art. It does help not having to render in a city full of cars and pedestrians and only rendering a few NPCs at most, though entering Saint Denis on my 7-year-old PS4 can definitely turn it into a jet engine. Another argument is that remaking these games might interfere with the whole 2D, 3D, HD universe thing that Rockstar had in place for a while now. But why should that matter? If the cities remain the same in their structure and the characters are also the same, why can't they be separate universes despite them looking almost the same? As you all know, each version of Liberty City, for example, features a somewhat similar but different design, and each of the locations present on the map are named differently. So they can definitely look the same but be different universes. That's not really an issue, but I still wanted to include and explain it. Another argument might be that we already have GTA 4 for Liberty City, GTA 5 for 1/3 of San Andreas' map, and soon to be GTA 6 for Vice City's map. So what's the point in remaking these games if we technically have the maps updated already? Most people are already tired of the same 3 recycled maps for over 25 years. But since the idea is to bring these games up to modern standard, why not do so by rebuilding them from the ground up? Like I've mentioned already, the maps aren't exactly one-to-one as they feature different structures, plus we're also adapting the stories, not just the maps. So it would be a great opportunity to retell the adventures of Claude, Tommy, and CJ. But realistically, going through the effort of planning, developing, marketing, and releasing each of these supposed remakes on the 20th anniversary of their OG counterparts might have not been Rockstar's main game plan. Because even though it would have been nice to have these games to play whilst waiting for the highly anticipated release of GTA 6, Rockstar instead focused on releasing frequent updates to the online mode for GTA 5, because financially speaking, it was the better choice, even though that's sad to admit. Since I've mentioned earlier that some games don't receive the same love years after release, I find it weird how Red Dead 1 was ported after 13 years, but the same wasn't done for GTA 4. We know RDR was a development mess and that porting it to PC was nearly impossible. So how come GTA 4, which was completely fine, never got re-released for PS4 and newer consoles? Though instead of a simple port for the new gen, many people would much prefer for the game to receive a proper remaster along with the DLCs of course. And it's weird how Rockstar never celebrated any of GTA 4's anniversaries, at least so far, as on the 10th anniversary of it they didn't even post a tweet or a newswire post on their website, and it's a shame as many people to this day consider GTA 4 to be the best in the series, even above games like San Andreas and 5, plus it came along with 2 of the greatest single-player expansions ever made, that added more elements of fun to the open world and expanded the lore with 2 new perspectives from 2 different protagonists. I want to also talk about GTA 5's expanded and enhanced version, which was meant to be a massive visual upgrade to the game. Now, the enhanced part is questionable, as what this version truly offered was an upgrade to 60 FPS and 4K resolution to the new gen consoles, but nothing else. Couldn't that have been done with a simple patch for the PS4 version? Well, no, because that would mean a free update instead of charging a full price for that. So I guess the expanded part of this port is the expansions of the company's profits. So, what's the future looking like when it comes to remasters? Will Rockstar continue to do so for their older games? Well, when the possibility is there, they definitely go for it, as nearly all the games from the 3D universe have been ported to the mobile at least once, with the exception of VCS. And if you'd like to know why that was the case, check out this video in which I explain everything regarding the remaster of VCS that never came. Now with the release of the definitive editions to mobile as well, not only do we have 2 remasters of each of the 3 games, which is weird enough as is, but the mobile ports of the definitive editions also seem to come with bug fixes and improvements that haven't been introduced to the PC/console versions, which is just plain stupid. The decisions that Rockstar has made are very questionable to say the least, and we'll probably see more of this in the coming years, but I hope to be wrong and that future remasters will come in a much better looking state on their day 1 release. It's really weird begging for a company to do the bare minimum, but that's modern gaming for you. No matter how you feel about this, we can all agree that Rockstar can make better decisions in the future if they wanted to. Cash grabs aren't today's news, and they have been an industry standard for a while now. Things can only change if the public stops supporting these practices. If you liked what you saw, leave a like and comment down below your thoughts. Do you believe Rockstar would ever remake their games? And can they do better for when they inevitably remaster some of their other games? And of course, consider subscribing if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching.